of band is this?
Everybody poops sometimes.
Give us the smother.
Wake up, sweetness.
Your first time should be more than special.
I'm in, Savannah said. Good Lord, Gemma.
When a man and a woman, in this case, really, really love each other, what happens is they fuck.
Ooh, hello?
Oh, dang it, I lost my fish.
This next word almost sounds like Quidditch. Quidditch milade Diana Agosiagath an Fiedian.
As much as I love fucking you, sweetness. We stared into each other's eyes whilst I moaned in ecstasy. Having consumed half of the bourbon, I keep saying bourbon. You know, every time I mess up on a word, Stunt Mama just shows up.
She had her seductive smile on her lips.
I said we couldn't have sex. I didn't say anything about everything else. Ew. Happy to help. Biatch. You are the spark of light and the vastness of my night. His note, like a finality to a beautiful, breathtaking song.
A beautiful, breathtaking song, indeed. Good evening, everybody. We're going to attempt to read tonight. My throat still feels not the best, but I think I'm good enough to get a little reading in. So we'll see. I have my tea, of course, so I can continuously sip that. So I guess we'll see how it goes. There's your puzzle for the evening. Thank you, Walking Stick. I'm hydrating right now. Good tea. Hello, Mama House Gaming. How are you? Cheers to you as well. It's a little difficult to tell from the puzzle picture above my head, but this is like an old school picture of Italy, Venice, I think. And since a lot of our story has been in Italy, and it's no longer Christmas, I thought I'd get rated by Night Marcher. Night Marcher. Thank you for the raid. Oh my goodness. What a pleasure. Welcome in, everybody. We're gonna attempt to read tonight, Night Marcher.
Say hi, Julian.
Hi, Julian.
They're all fantastic. Give them a.
Say
give
hi,
them a call,
Julian.
guys. I know that's some of
Hi,
mine.
Julian.
That's cute. Good timing for you to go live? Yeah, I guess so. I appreciate it. Thank you. That was your boy. You're so cute. How long ago was that? He looked pretty young. Not that I've seen him, recently, but I feel like he's a bit older than that right now. Years? Yeah, that's what I thought. Based on how you were chatting with them today, little buggers. He's 10. Wow. My kiddo will be 9 in a month. Which brings me to my, the thing. The dad, I know I saw. Voice, face. You will salute me and say, yes, sir. My son and I share a birthday. Fun fact. Son of a... Why did that not work? I hate it here. Me too. Try it again. Did I not add that command? Oh, I didn't add it. That's why. I switched to Firebot and I didn't put it in. Son of a biscuit. That's why. Gosh darn it. You know what? Let's make it subs only. I gotta find the how do I do this again? It's been ages since I've tried to add something to Firebot. Let's see. Hold on. We're gonna do this right now. I know how to do this. We go to common, I'm pretty sure. And then we find sound or something. Be back in a bit. Gotta run my brother's house and let the dogs out. Yeah, no worries. I hope he gets better. The point is already out of the window, though. No, it's not. Well, it might be, but I still have to fix it. That's all I'm saying. Play sound. There it is. Gosh darn it. Okay, now I need to locate the sound. Is this it?
Daddy.
That's one of them. I think there's another one though. Maybe I'm wrong. No, maybe that's it. Which is fine. Add. Save. All right. Going forward. That sucker should work. Just realized one of my buttons had come undone. All right. Well, now that I've wasted a copious amount of time there, what I was trying to say was my birthday is at the end of January, end of the month. Are we put together? Not really. But we're doing the best we can. It's at the end of the month. So for all the streams from now until when I do the birthday stream, I am going to put people's names, old school style, on a piece of paper. And somebody is going to win this very nice backpack. It is brand new. Star Mama. Brand new. It's basically a laptop backpack. But someone will win that when I do my birthday stream. So, as it says, nope, right here. Any sub, any 500 bit per, you will get an entry, and someone's gonna win a backpack. So, and I will mail it to you. All right, that's that taken care of. Hello, Stop Mama's Mama. Welcome in. And hello, Kay. Welcome to you as well. Let's get some reading in before my voice completely gives out. Because we don't want that. Am I on the reading scene? I think I am. Yes, I am. Very good. Okay. But, you know the way to my house. I do. All right. Chapter 39 is on page 239 of our book. Remember, there's only, 306 pages, I think, of story? Or no, hold on. 360 something. So, we don't have much to go. Mad Locust is here as well. Hello. So I'm just going to get into it. It's going to be great. I may have... my throat isn't actually that much better, but thank you. I'm trying. I just didn't want to miss another stream of reading. It was driving me nuts. I didn't want to do it. I needed to do it for myself and for you guys, because this is a great story and I don't want to miss too much. I don't want to have too much time between chapters of not reading and then be like, what happened? You know what I mean? So anyway, we're going to read regardless. Chapter 39, page 239. Welcome to the new year. I love you all. Two days passed before a wire arrived from Lestrade conveying the news that Colonel James Moriarty was now the main suspect for the murder of William Palmer. The Metropolitan Police had issued a warrant for his arrest. I was as shocked as Holmes when he relayed the news to me. Sherlock, if Palmer's dead, then who is pursuing us? My God, whoever the man is, it's not just me he's after, is it? Holmes nodded, pushing his lunch to one side. I have suddenly lost my appetite. You have to eat something to keep up your strength. I cannot spare energy for digestion, Neen. My faculties become more concentrated when I starve them. And at this moment, I clearly need all my faculties about me. Holmes smoked incessantly for the rest of the day, barely touching any food and unable to sleep. When Holmes and I arrived in the village the following day, he was relieved to find a telegram from Mycroft had come at last. He read out the contents to me, which were several pages long. Mycroft discovered Colonel Moriarty's escape from Bedlam Mental Asylum had been orchestrated by Palmer's henchmen, the Tooley Street Gang. Apparently, the gang plotted Moriarty's escape after learning of Sherlock's shock return to London after being presumed dead for 3 years. An eyewitness had come forward, Ronnie Williams, who was an ex-gang member. The latter had turned informant after being arrested by Lestrade in Camden for robbery and causing grievous bodily harm. Shelby's off, I'll be back, no worries. Williams confessed to Lestrade that he was one of the 3 gang members responsible for springing Moriarty out of Bedlam after Palmer bribed 2 security guards. Moriarty was subsequently held in a safe house by Palmer's gang, where, according to Williams, he plotted an act of wicked and deadly revenge. Moreover, the Metropolitan Police connected Moriarty with Palmer's murder after identifying the bullet removed from Palmer's body had been fired from an old Remington Army revolver of the same caliber Moriarty used during his time in the armed forces. Holmes was staggered to learn that Moriarty was still at large. He told me that although Moriarty was by no means in the same intellectual league as his late brother, nevertheless, he still remained an intelligent and dangerous antagonist. When we returned to the barn, Holmes read Mycroft's messages for a second time, digesting the extraordinary story. Later that afternoon, I returned from the stables to find Holmes sitting on the chaise lounge. I was shocked to see his shoulders bowed and his head sunk into his hand. In a state of agitation, I sat beside him, taking his hand in mine. "What is it, Sherlock? You don't look well at all." "This infernal problem consumes me," said Holmes. "You are aware that it has been an old maxim of mine that when you have excluded the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, has to be the truth. Given the fact that Palmer is already dead, Moriarty is on our trail, and there is little doubt he has vengeance in mind." "But why is the man so fixated on you?" "Because he constantly wrote to the newspapers, making threats, and spreading malicious rumors of my guilt while professing his brother's innocence. He broke out of the asylum with the assistance of Palmer and his gang. It is no coincidence that he escaped from the institution that incarcerated him for over 3 years upon discovering I was back in London. He undoubtedly used his contacts with the railways to follow Watson and me to Milan. Then for some reason, he turned his attention to you, Neen. Perhaps having seen us together, he was under the illusion that there was something between us. His senses, no doubt inflamed by his fragile mental state, and more likely the reason he attempted to poison you was to get to me. He knows about us. My God, Professor Moriarty has turned his own death into an enigma. Even though he burns in hell, he continues to torment me." I gasped. "My God! That means he must have followed us here from Milan." Holmes nodded. "It would appear so. Moriarty used Palmer as a scapegoat, and then as a decoy to try and put me off the scent. While I suspected Palmer, Moriarty was aware that I would not be looking elsewhere. His main advantage, of course, was that I had never seen him before." "Did Mycroft give you a physical description of this man?" "Yes. He is similar in stature to his late brother. He obviously used makeup to create and disguise Palmer's scar." "You must not blame yourself, Sherlock. How could have you known?" "It's my job to know, Neen, as it is my job to protect you. I was too slow at the outset. Culpably so." "This man has been playing and fantasizing about our demise. I assume he will be armed." "Yes, he will be armed, all right," said Holmes. "What we do know is that he is ruthless. He shot Palmer and threw his body into the Thames. He is most certainly already here in Fiesole. But this is not your mountain to climb. It's me he wants. If you remain here, you will be in mortal danger. I need to get you away from here." "I am not going anywhere. As far as I'm concerned, we are in this together. Javier is working outside. I can ask him to escort me to the lumber room. That's where Ludo keeps his pistol. I take it you still have your revolver?" Holmes nodded. "Good," I said. "You know, everybody has gone to a wedding in the village today. Only Javier and a few of the farmhands remain behind." I paused for a moment, staring at Holmes, horrified. "Oh, my God. I believe this man is much nearer than we first anticipated. On the night of the supper party, one of the casual laborers asked for my autograph. His physical description matches that of Moriarty, except for a shaved head and side whisker. He said his name was Ben Masterson, an artist from the West Country. I borrowed his fountain pen to sign my autograph, and I remember thinking it appeared odd. The signature had a slightly blurred appearance, not unlike the card from the flowers. I am so sorry, I have only just remembered. Do not reproach yourself for a second, said Holmes. This is not your fault. At least we know what we're dealing with. Holmes opened the barn door and called out to Javier, beckoning him to come inside. He quizzed Javier, asking if he had seen Ben Masterson. Javier shook his head, claiming he had not seen Masterson for several days. Finally, Holmes took Javier by the shoulders. Now, my boy, he said, I need you to accompany Neen to the lumber room. I take it the brougham is still outside? Javier nodded, and Holmes continued. When you get to the stables, wait for Neen. Don't let her out of your sight for 1 second. Then I want you to return here to me. Do you understand? Return her here to me, sorry. Javier nodded, a grave expression on his face. Holmes smiled at him grimly. Good man. There's no time to be lost. You must ride like the devil down to the village and take this letter to the local constabulary. I watched as Holmes quickly scribbled out a letter onto his notebook and then handed it to Javier. The letter was for Chief Inspector Montalabo. In the note, Holmes insisted that Montalabo return to Lissaul with an escort as though their lives depended on it, as he would have a particularly dangerous fugitive to deal with, one who was most certainly armed and who had murder in mind. Holmes whispered in Javier's ear and patted him on the shoulder. Javier and I jumped into the brougham and set off on our journey to the lumber room. Javier watched in stunned silence as I expertly loaded the pistol, a Schonberger Lohmann semi-automatic. Before placing it into the pocket of my riding habit, I noticed a small bottle of blue vitriol nestled in the box containing the bullets. I carefully poured a small amount into an empty phial, and then firmly closed the lid before placing it into my pocket alongside the gun. Hi, Huldra. Looking for the bedtime story? What a great idea. Javier helped me into the brougham, lashing the horses until they broke into a gallop. We passed the barn and the farmhouse at speed until we were outside on the lane. I gasped in shock. Javier, what on earth are you doing? You were supposed to drop me off at the barn. You must stop at once. I'm sorry, Neen, but I have to follow Mr. Holmes's orders and take you to the village where you'll be safe. I stared at him in disbelief, tears flooding my face. Javier, if you don't stop this carriage right now, I swear to God I will jump out. Do you want to be responsible for my death? Javier looked round, mortified to find my hand on the carriage door, trying to force it open with a sharp tug. Javier reined in the horses until the carriage eventually came to a halt, and I quickly jumped out of the brougham. Javier stared at me, a stunned expression on his face. I cannot leave you here, Neen. It's not safe. Please, get back in. I promise I will take you back to the barn, but only if you are sure that's what you want. Yes, it's what I want. I nodded. Thank you, Javier. I know I'm a nightmare, but please don't worry. I will speak to Mr. Holmes and I will explain it's all my fault. Javier turned the horses around and we made our way back to the barn. Javier helped me out of the carriage and I kissed him on the cheek. Thank you. Be careful, I whispered. Javier waited in silence until I reached the door before whipping the horses to move. In a moment, he had disappeared into the night. And that is the end of chapter 30. Excuse me, chapter 39. That tea is good. Shall we do a shout out? I think we shall.
Racy there.
Oh, Huldra. Never a dull moment in your stream. And Walking Stick, I apologize. I wasn't sure if you were streaming or not, so I shouted you out anyway. Just wanted to double check. But you were getting up to no game, so I'm just gonna say no. Probably not. But that's okay. Not everybody has to be a streamer on Twitch. I wasn't for quite a while. That looked like my daughter's driving in games? Yeah. Pretty much. In fact, Stunt Mama and Huldra would get on like a house on fire. It'd be something. It would be something. Oh boy. Everyone doing okay? I hope so. And if not, get it together. Just kidding. We'll have to let her know. Yeah, please do. Huldra is in the UK. At the moment, anyway. Which is why she's going to bed. Because it's almost 12:30 in the morning. It's fine, I'm not a streamer. I came in with Lit a week or so ago. Yeah, that much I kind of clicked with. I just couldn't, I can never remember who's a streamer and who's not. Unless I've got this like pattern in my head and I'm like, nope, I know Walking Stick isn't a streamer. You know, I have to kind of, it has to click and stick up here. Until then, I'm an amateur. An amateur. But that's okay. Because I'm human. And bloody hell, humans make mistakes. 'Tis true. Chapter 40 stems from page 245. And this one is from Sherlock Holmes' perspective. It's hard to keep up with lots of people. Yes. Couldn't agree more. Took the words out of my mouth. Tequila Sunrise, hello. So great to see you. How are you? Oh, yep, that was death coming for you right there. You're quite welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're just about to start the next chapter. I apologize for my throat if it sounds weird. I'm still dealing with I don't know what this is, but my throat is not happy. But that's okay. The show must go on. So as I was saying, page 245, chapter 40, Sherlock Holmes' perspective. Sit back, relax, and I will continue to read a story. Ensuring every door and shutter was closed. I have a slight sore throat today. Yes, it's going around. It's very annoying. Ensuring every door and shutter was closed, I checked the rooms in the barn. As I opened the door to the study, I noticed the window was half open. Within seconds, I was outside, my eyes scanning the garden. Large, masculine footprints were imprinted in the flower bed. I searched amongst the grass and leaves, finally discovering a discarded Bowie army knife. I turned over the blade, examining it closely. KD, hi. How are you? KD is our author, everybody. She wrote this book. She deserves all the praise, all the credit. My throat is still a mess, KD, but I could not wait any longer to dive back into your book. I'm just telling you that right now, before you yell at me. Moriarty, I muttered. Walking back into the barn, I heard running water coming from the direction of the bathroom. Pushing the door open, I found the taps running. I switched them off, and my eyes were immediately drawn to the mirror. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, yes. Can't have enough of those. I might even have to make a second cup of tea. Excuse me. I caught a tickle in my throat right as I was about to swallow. It was very awkward timing. I switched them off and my eyes were immediately drawn to the mirror. The initials JM and the word retribution traced into the steamy condensation. Closing the door, I quietly entered the bedroom, removing Watson's revolver from the drawer. Checking the chamber, I was staggered to discover it was empty, the bullets removed. A faint sound echoed in the stillness, one that appeared to be coming from the direction of the drawing room. Picking up my riding crop from the dressing table, I moved along the passageway. I was about to enter the drawing room when I heard the definite noise of another human being. The space was undoubtedly empty, save for the one strange figure ahead. I felt as though I'd seen a ghost at the sight of a tall, bald-headed man with a high forehead and protruding chin who sat in an armchair. He was the mirror image of Professor Moriarty. There was a roguish snap in his sunken blue eyes that continued to stare at me. His head swayed from side to side in a curiously reptilian manner, reminiscent of his late brother. He was dressed in a gray suit of tweed, with gaiters and a soft cloth cap. There was no doubt it was Moriarty's brother, who pointed a revolver at me. "Good afternoon, Holmes. Were you, perchance, looking for these?" Moriarty opened his left hand to reveal the missing shells. "Sit down, for God's sake. You're giving me a migraine with your hovering." Sitting down on the chaise lounge, I slowly pulled out my silver cigarette case from my pocket. "Do you mind?" I asked. Moriarty nodded. I lit the cigarette with a Vestas match before throwing the case over to Moriarty. He removed a cigarette from the case and struck a match, blowing circles of smoke into the air. Leaning my head back on the chaise lounge, I stared at the bilious face in front of me, drawing on my cigarette. "You're a skulking rascal, Moriarty." "You worked it out then, Holmes. I knew you would eventually realize it was me. Apart from your physical description, which was only recently made known to me, your clothes gave it away. Why, your whole outfit is quintessentially English, from the cut of your coat, frayed at the elbows, and the trousers bagged at the knee. I can see that you cycled here today." There's a slight indentation to your knees caused by the bicycle clips. Moriarty stared at me thoughtfully. Hi, Ash. I will see you later for sure. Don't forget. I don't even begin to understand you, Holmes. I followed you and Watson to Milan and intended to kill you both there and then. But then I discovered your budding romance with the enchanting Miss Adler at La Scala, and I recognized the opportunity for what it was, to remove someone from your life who you actually gave a damn about. Watson had a very fortunate escape. Although I do have to say that you are a fortunate man, Holmes. Miss Adler is a lovely woman. No doubt you've kept her entertained, and who could blame you? A smile like hers would melt ice. I would have been sorely tempted myself under different circumstances. The drugs they administer at the asylum do little for your libido. You have no idea what it was like, Holmes, to be deprived of your dignity day after day, having to listen to the meandering screams of the other inmates being forcibly injected with antipsychotics. Bedlam is hardly a bastion of recovery and rehabilitation. Moriarty continued to stare at me, his blue eyes as cold as ice. He shuffled in his seat before adding with grim levity, "As for the poisoning episode, well, I must admit I couldn't resist. Once I knew the both of you were to attend the celebration dinner, I wasted no time in offering my services to the hotel manager, who was delighted with my impeccable references. As to the actual poisoning, well, that was most regrettable. How could one know the young lady would switch seats? And then I followed you here. You must surely remember that nice grey-haired old porter who loaded your luggage onto the brougham? Why, you even gave me a tip. I was in disguise, of course. I didn't want your friend, Mr. Espirito, to recognize me when I applied for a job posing as my make-believe brother. I shaved my head and fake side whiskers for that interview. He's such a charming man, but he unwittingly revealed your destination after I inquired about possible employment from my brother Ben, which was me in disguise once again. I tricked you into thinking it was Palmer pursuing you and your lady friend, looking for some ridiculous carbuncle that he told me of before I shot him and dumped his body into the Thames. Oh, Palmer had to go, I'm afraid. It would have ruined everything if the Metropolitan Police had found him in London. But it was rather exhilarating impersonating a dead man. You should try it, Holmes. It removes the strain from living. Oh, I nearly forgot. You already have. Fortunately, Palmer and I were of a similar build and height. Why, we could have been brothers in another life. I used makeup, of course, to copy his scar. I have always been artistically gifted. But please don't blame yourself, Holmes. How could you be expected to recognize someone you'd never met before? Even with all your cleverness, that would have proven impossible. I smiled sardonically at Moriarty, leaning forward in my chair. I must say that I'm a little puzzled by your allegiance to your late brother, the man who robbed you of your inheritance. Moriarty looked at me in surprise. What exactly do you mean by that? Well, when your father, Richard, discovered your brother's evil intentions, there was an altercation between the two of them at your father's country estate in Elmridge. Richard threatened to cut your brother off without a penny and leave everything to you. Your brother stormed out, but he returned a few months later, cap in hand, begging for forgiveness. He soon struck up a relationship with your father's nurse, Sybil Dexter. She was flattered by his attentions and naively allowed him to charm his way into her affections. Your brother tricked Sybil and your father into believing he was a reformed character. Then he slowly began to poison Richard, lacing his tea with thallium until your father became delirious, and your brother took advantage of his fragile state of mind, forcing your father to change his will in his favor.
How could you possibly know that?
Cried Moriarty. I sighed. Sybil Dexter came to see me at Baker Street. After witnessing him pouring a liquid into his tea, then finding out he was forcing his father to sign a new will, she realized what your brother was up to. She explained to me how your father started to suffer from alopecia and complained of burning feet and palms. Sybil called for the doctor despite your brother's protestations. Unfortunately, your father was misdiagnosed with gastroenteritis and diabetic peripheral neuropathy. I suspected your father had been poisoned by thallium, which can be found in most country houses, often used as rat poison. It's a colorless, odorless, and tasteless toxin, difficult to detect in small doses, as it's slow-acting, producing numerous symptoms often suggestive of other illnesses, hence the misdiagnosis. Desperately worried about him, Sybil implored me to help your father. By the time Lestrade and I arrived at Elmridge, it was too late. Your father was already dead. Giving a lecture on the treatise he wrote on binomial theorem, your brother ensured he was nowhere near the scene of the crime, of course. An autopsy was later carried out. Although small traces of the toxin were detected in your father's urine and blood, we had little proof that it was your brother who had committed the crime. We only had the word of Sybil. She bravely agreed to testify against your brother, but the day before the preliminary hearing, she disappeared. Without its key witness, the prosecution fell apart, leaving your brother free to claim his inheritance. I drew on my cigarette. Sybil Dexter was later found overdosed on heroin at her home in Kentish Town. The Metropolitan Police found a suicide note and confession next to her body, claiming she was solely responsible for your father's death. I hesitated for a moment before continuing. She was 4 months pregnant at the time with your brother's child. Supposing Professor Moriarty was capable of having an innocent woman murdered, destroying his own child in the process, do you think he would think twice about swindling you out of your inheritance? I shook my head. Moriarty was a highly ruthless individual, totally devoid of humanity, an epitome of evil. And, of course, he used his ill-gotten gains to launch his empire, his network of crime when he moved to London.
You're lying,
shrieked Moriarty.
My brother told me the police closed this case after Sybil's confession. They would never have done that if they thought my brother was responsible for my father's death.
I have never lied to you. I said, the truth can hurt. But if you don't believe me, you are even more disillusioned than I gave you credit for.
Moriarty laughed. This changes nothing, Holmes. I still intend to kill you and the woman.
At that moment, the clatter of a carriage and horse drawing up outside sound. Oh, welcome back, Mama House Gaming. Horse drawing up outside sounded.
Ah,
said Moriarty.
I wondered what was keeping Miss Adler. You're too late, Moriarty, I cried. She is long gone by now, away from your evil clutches. Moriarty smirked at me. You know very little of women, Holmes. If you think a woman like Miss Adler would leave you, I was banking on her high regard for you, and it would appear she has justified my faith. He laughed again as the front door opened and Neen entered the drawing room, pausing for a moment, taking in the scene in front of her. Moriarty, I presume, said Neen, glaring at him. Moriarty smiled, pointing the gun at her. Welcome to the party, Miss Adler. How lovely to see you again. Tell me, have you come to glorify me? Hardly, Neen retorted, making no attempt to hide the contempt in her voice. Why, this is turning into quite the reunion. Do take a seat next to your lover. Moriarty gestured to the chaise lounge. You may as well let her go. There is nothing between this woman and me. We are friends. Nothing more. Please don't insult my intelligence, said Moriarty, his head swaying from side to side. You're asking me to believe this woman is your friend? You don't have friends, especially not women. I've observed your shining intimacy with Miss Adler for some time. Your romantic moonlight rendezvous. Moriarty smirked at Neen. When you catch such a fish, you don't throw it back into the ocean. You know I'm going to have to kill you. However, I must say I'm impressed with your tenacity. Zarias. What's up, Zarias? Neen glared at Moriarty, her cheeks flushed and eyes ablaze. You tragedy of a man. There's nothing you can take from me that I have not already lost. There are worse things than death. I'm not afraid of you, Moriarty. Oh, you will be in the end, my dear. That I promise. Neen scowled at Moriarty. God set my heart beating, and he will be the one who decides when it stops. You have no right to decide who lives and dies. Moriarty appeared amused by her narrative. We are all dying, Miss Adler. Life contains death. However, I do think that a little celebratory drink is called for to acknowledge my late brother's retribution, so to speak. Would you be kind enough to do the honors? Moriarty gestured towards the drinks on the sideboard. Neen flashed him a dry smile. If these are to be my last moments on Earth, I prefer to go out with a bang. As you can see, I have recently returned from the stables. She pointed to her riding habit. This is a new jacket which does not belong to me. I would hate for it to be ruined. Would you mind if I take it off? Moriarty nodded. Neen took her left arm out of the jacket, quickly turning the pocket inside out so I could see the outline of Ludo's gun, then promptly removed a tiny vial and placed it into her gloved hand, quickly closing it to make a fist before laying the jacket beside me on the chaise lounge. I watched closely as she carefully removed her gloves, the vial remaining concealed in her fist. Finally, she slowly walked over to the sideboard, her face dripping with perspiration. Tell me, Moriarty, what's your poison? She asked, fixing him with a steely gaze. A whiskey for me, Miss Adler, said Moriarty, a flicker of a smile on his face. Neen decadent the whiskey, pouring it into 3 separate tumblers. She brought one over to me. Despair branded every line of her face as she smiled at me sadly before returning to the sideboard. I observed her topping up her own glass with a splash of soda water, quickly adding a liberal dash of liquid from the vial. I had no way of knowing what was in the vial, but suspected vitriol, as I knew Ludo kept it in the stables. My eyes darted over to Moriarty, who sat back in his chair, unaware of the deception. Professor Petty, I know I'm late to the party, but let's enjoy a good book. Welcome in. It's great to see you. You've come at a wonderful time. The story is getting quite exciting. He looked up at Neen, Let's try that again. He looked up at Neen. I did it again. Gosh darn it. Third time's a charm. Okay. He looked up as Neen. Nailed it. Walked toward him and passed him a glass. Thank you, my dear, he said, taking a swig of whiskey. Neen remained standing next to him, pretending to sip from her own glass, narrowing her eyes before fixing Moriarty with a cold stare. I ask only one thing. If you insist on shooting me like a dog, then aim for my heart, not my head. It would kill my family if they were called upon to identify my body. I will see what I can do. That's a lovely thing to say. Moriarty looked at Neen with amused surprise. I must say, I find your courage remarkable, my dear. Even now, you don't desist. He flashed her a wiry smile before turning his attention back to me, pointing the gun at my head. Not all will weep for you, Holmes, Moriarty sneered. You made some powerful enemies during your time at Baker Street. There are plenty from the underworld who would line up to take my place. I've seen to it that they know about your alliance with Miss Adler, of course. My little insurance policy. He laughed menacingly. You and the young lady would be rather vulnerable if you were to return to London. He raised his glass, a glazed expression upon his face. Count no man happy until he has had a good death. I glared at Moriarty. My eyes narrowed. You leave very little room for misinterpretation, Moriarty. You are culpable, all right. But know this. If you lay one finger on this woman, I swear I will finish you. And I promise you, it will hurt. Your brother was a giant of evil. And with your blatant disregard for human life, it appears the rotten apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Professor Moriarty fell to his death, attempting to murder me. And that is the absolute truth of the matter. Spare yourself the indignity of denial, Holmes, cried Moriarty. Tell the truth and shame the devil, why don't you? You may as well give it up, I cried. It's finished. There's nowhere to run. The police will be here any moment. They are surrounding this establishment even as we speak. A cold, gnawing feeling knotted in the pit of my stomach. I looked over to Neen. Tears of anguish flooded her face as she addressed me. There are things between us that remain unsaid. But I want you to know that I love you with my whole heart. What you said to me at the amphitheater, you were wrong. Any woman should be proud to call you her husband. I know I would. Thank you. That is quite the compliment. I smiled at her. What an incredible fortune it was to have found you again. Moriarty laughed. Such impassioned speeches. he exclaimed, pointing the gun at Neen's head as he cocked his pistol. Please don't take this personally, Miss Adler. I rather like you. I shot to my feet, running between the two. I turned to face Moriarty. You're right about one thing, Moriarty. If you want to kill this woman, then you'll have to go through me first, for I would sooner slit my own throat than allow you to harm her. Few people are worth dying for, but she is the exception. Prepare for your descent straight into hell, you pathetic runt. Why, I believe you are the devil himself. I'm hardly the devil, Moriarty quipped. Perhaps an aspiring deviant. Do your worst, Moriarty, Neen exclaimed, throwing her drink in his face. Moriarty screamed out in agony. His right hand shot up in the air. The gun fired, missing Neen by a hair's breadth. She stumbled and fell onto the floor, stunned by the bullet's passage as it went whistling past her and ricocheted against the edge of the window, shattering the glass. I quickly removed Ludo's gun from its hiding place and fired without hesitation. The bullet hit Moriarty in the shoulder. He howled in pain before falling back. The gun flew out of his hand and clattered to the floor. Neen lunged towards the gun. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Moriarty, blood running down his face. His left eye, swollen shut, kicked the gun out of Neen's reach. You poisonous little bitch, he snarled, grabbing for her. Moriarty picked up the gun and pointed it at Neen's head with his right hand, his other around her neck. I aimed Ludo's gun at Moriarty's head. Drop it! Let her go! I cried. Moriarty glared at me. No. You drop it, Holmes, or I swear I will kill her right in front of you. Neen looked at me. You have a clear shot, Sherlock. Take it. You must shoot him. We both don't need to die today. I shook my head. A tear rolled down my face. I heard Moriarty cock the barrel of the gun. I took aim at Moriarty's head. My hand was on the trigger when gunfire sounded. Moriarty fell to the floor, his head mutilated by a bullet fired from Inspector Montalbano's pistol. Looking over to Neen, I noticed she was still on the floor. I dropped the gun and ran to her. I had spent most of my adult life avoiding emotional interaction with women, but when I saw Neen lying on the ground, I felt as though my world had ended. Reaching for her hand, I checked her pulse, crying out in anguish. Neen, look at me. I've got you, and I'm going to take care of you. She slowly opened her eyes and smiled at me. Are we dead? Have we made it to heaven? Hardly. Not unless I'm God, and I think that's highly unlikely. Don't you? I breathed a sigh of relief. You fainted for a moment. Are you all right, my love? She gazed up at me with a concerned expression. I'm fine. Sweeping her up in my arms, I sat her down on the chaise lounge. My hands gripped her waist, pulling her to me. Why didn't you go with Javier while you had the chance? I couldn't bear to leave you. Inspector Montalbano's constables burst into the room, taking in the body on the floor, the blood-splattered walls, and the room thick with smoke and fire. I spoke to Montalbano, who was considerably astonished when I relieved our identity and the chain of events leading to its bloody conclusion. Thank you for your help, Inspector, I said, shaking his hand. If you hadn't arrived when you did, I would have been reasonable for his. I would have been responsible for his demise. Helping Neen to her feet, who held on to each other as I whispered, "You do realize that was the only time you have ever told me you love me?" Neen laughed, her eyes bright with tears. "Now is not the time to be fishing for compliments, Mr. Holmes. I've spent enough time massaging your ego." "I want you to pack an overnight bag," I said. "I'm taking you to a hotel." Surely we have to give a statement to the police?" she quizzed. I shook my head. "I will go and see Montalablo in the morning to make a formal statement. The rest they can work out for themselves. The police don't retain me to supply their deficiencies." Neen quickly packed a bag while I wrote a note for the Espiritos. Soon we were safely ensconced in Montalablo's carriage, and when we arrived at the village, I booked us into a suite at the Athena Hotel under the name of Mr. and Mrs. Holmes. And ladies and gentlemen, that was a very riveting chapter 40. Holy crap, you're back. Did I go somewhere? Dude, swaggy. That was an excellent chapter. That tea's good. It's so good. Like, oh my gosh. I don't know, I think I had you as the narrator for my YouTube video, and then I tried to credit you and you were gone. Wait. What is your Discord name? Glad you liked it. I loved it. It was great. That was a fantastic chapter. I mean, they've all been really good. Dude, Swagmaster. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, yeah. You did the puppet thing. That's right. Okay. That's because at that time, my Twitch was Atkinson1020. I had changed it sometime after to the Bookfather. That's why you're confused. Sorry about that. I did not realize. But yes, for everyone in chat, I got to do a really cool voiceover for this animated show about this like puppet master. It was very creepy, very dark, but it was so cool. So yes, you'll change the credits. I appreciate that. Thank you. So welcome in. Glad to catch you. I'm curious, now that you're here, what else have you been working on? Anything new and exciting we can get our eyes on? This is a Fantastico. I might have you back for something if that's okay. Sure. Absolutely. I would love to. It would be my pleasure. Feel free to Discord DM me the details later. Just not in that voice. Here, do this voice. What are you redeeming? Batman. Okay. All right. Hold on. Gotham is never safe without me. I am the knight. Bleh. On vengeance. We now read Chapter 41. Irene Adler. The whole of our extraordinary journey seemed like a dream, as though something had tilted the world off its axis. Holmes sat beside me, looking concerned. "Can I get you anything?" he asked. "May I have one of those, please?" I gestured to his cigarette. Holmes lit another and passed it to me. I puffed on it, blowing a circle of smoke into the air. Perhaps one day they will invent a cigarette that lights itself. Wouldn't that be something? I need a bath. I can smell Moriarty on my skin. Alfred. Holmes stood. "Stay here," he said. "I'll be back in a moment." And when he returned, he was Batman.
There you go. Oh, now we're doing Arnold. Okay. Just having fun at this, aren't you? All right. Yeah. Duh. I need to make those more expensive. Right. Now Arnold. This is going to be funny. The pungent aroma of castle soap lingered in the air as I climbed into the bath Holmes had drawn for me. Resting my head on the backrest, I closed my eyes as Holmes tenderly sponged my body. Good thing the neighbors couldn't see. "I'm going to order drinks from room service. What would you like?" he asked. I murmured sleepily. "Hot chocolate would be good, with a dash of brandy. I want it now." Have you read Pen Pal? That doesn't sound familiar. I must have fallen asleep because when I woke, I was lying on the bed, wrapped in a soft Egyptian towel and a sheet that covered my body. Holmes was sitting in an armchair, watching over me. Sitting up on my elbows, I gazed at Holmes. "What time is it?" He looked at his watch chain. "It's 7 o'clock. Okay. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there." Okay, that's enough of that. Katie, I apologize. I almost forgot. We also have an ad starting. So since Arnold's done, we're going to run the ad. And then we'll be back and we'll keep reading. This chapter has gone to hell. Good thing it only just started. My goodness. You guys are nuts. Nuts, I tell you. All crazy like. So the Waggy, the books that I read, I have to have permission to read. Oh wait, you probably can't hear me. What am I doing? Duh. Oh, you can hear me. All right, cool. So yeah, I can't just read anything. I have to have permission from the publisher or author, whoever owns the rights. You hear me too? Perfect. I mean, I'm running ads, but nobody gets them. So we'll just sit here and awkwardly talk. You shouldn't be doing these voices till your throat is all healed up. You know, actually, my throat is feeling really good right now. I don't know why, but it feels pretty good. I feel almost normal. Maybe it's the tea. I don't know. I was thinking about adding Gru as a voice. I've been practicing. I need to get back into the practice though. It's not the easiest one for me to just turn on. But it's a fun one to do. My kid just dies with laughter every time. Here we go. No, get in the car. Anyway. The ads are over. Let's get back to a book. Holmes's action had inadvertently drawn my attention to his watch. I noticed something glittering on the chain. I stared at him curiously. "What was that shining on your watch chain?" I quizzed. "Well, surely you must remember." Holmes placed a gold coin in the palm of his hand. "This sovereign was given to me by a young lady at the Church of St. Monica as a reward for a standing witness to her marriage 7 years ago. I wear it every now and again to remind me of the occasion." I stared at him, shocked. "Of course. You were the witness at the church. I remember giving it to you. And you kept it after all this time?" "Yes. Even then I had a premonition that our paths would cross again." I smiled at him. "You were willing to sacrifice yourself for me today. I shall never forget that. I was once told that true bravery wears an invisible cloak without ever being suspected." "I would do it all again in a heartbeat," said Holmes. "I would rip up the world to keep you safe. You know, we made quite a team today. Perhaps we should attempt to save the world together more often. You and me against the world. That has a nice ring to it." I gazed into his eyes. "You know, Sherlock, there's nothing like the fear of death for making you question the meaning of life. When Moriarty pointed that gun at me, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was scared I'd never see you again." Jigsaw 3D. Ooh, nice. Is Mad Locust, is that one that, like, multiple people can join you in, like this one? Is it like a multiplayer style thing? Because I'd love to try a different one if it's good. The thought you might die in front of me,
like Rosemary, was terrifying. When you spoke to me earlier and questioned whether I loved you, your words broke my heart. I could no more not love you than I could stop breathing. If today has taught us anything, it's that we need to make the most of our time together. If there's any reason we cannot be together, I promise you this. I will find you again someday. Of that you must have no doubt. You can't get rid of me that easily. I'm here for the duration, although I don't want you to make any promises you don't want to keep. I have no expectations. I pride myself on being a man of my word. When I say that I will do something, then I will do everything within my power to make it happen. I put my arms around his neck, kissing him softly on the lips. Can I be with you tonight? I need to be close to you. Yes, of course. Are you hungry? Strangely enough, I am. Our brush with death has given me quite an appetite. Good. Dinner will arrive at 8 o'clock. Come, let's have a drink. He handed me a brandy. I took a sip from the glass. I'd better get dressed, I said. I have no wish to shock the waiter. Holmes kept his appointment with Montalablo the following day. He called in at the telegraph office to send messages to Mycroft, Watson, and Lestrade, informing them of Moriarty's demise. He returned to the hotel in time for breakfast to find me already dressed. Although I had little appetite, I was feeling nauseous. I blamed my affliction on the chicken we'd consumed for dinner the night before, although Sherlock appeared unaffected. Later that morning, we ordered a carriage and arrived at the farmhouse before luncheon. Holmes looked at me anxiously as he helped me down from the carriage. Are you sure you're up to this? He asked. I'm fine. I squeezed his hand reassuringly. We need to face the music together. We walked over to the farmhouse. I hugged Violetta, taking her hand in mine. I'm so sorry we deceived you, Violetta. We were not married when we first arrived. We lied to you, and for that we are truly sorry. We hope you can forgive us. I must admit, I thought the situation strange at first, said Violetta. But then I reasoned that whatever was going on, Sherlock must hold you in high regard to bring you here. You are an outstanding actress, Nina. Oh, it was not all acting, I can assure you. We've made a commitment to each other and have decided to live together when we return to England. Violetta embraced me, tears in her eyes. I am so very sorry for everything you have endured, but at least you came through it unscathed. That man can never hurt you again. Violetta stared at me curiously. Tell me, when do you and Sherlock plan to return to London? I chuckled softly. Well, Violetta, your baby is due any moment now. I'd like to be around when the happy event takes place, if that's agreeable with you and Ludo, of course. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done for us. I'm delighted that you're going to be here for the birth, said Violetta. I'm afraid Ludo will not be much use. Holmes agreed we could stay on, but only for a few more days. His services were required back in London, which, according to Mycroft, an intriguing case of the utmost importance awaited. I believe that you miss the foggy streets of London. Am I right? I quizzed. Your intuition is once again correct, said Holmes. Thank you, Sherlock. Whatever for? For indulging me. It is my pleasure.
And that is the end of the chapter. Good old chap. Indulging. Such lovely tea. Paired with an intriguing story. Oh boy. But here's the thing I'm curious about right now. Mycroft has been shot. He is dead. Shot twice, actually. Once in the shoulder, once in the head. One would think in a normal story that would have been just before the ending, and then poof, it's over. But that's not the case. We still have, what? About 100 pages, I think. Yeah, just about 101. But Moriarty is dead. So I'm curious now. What is going to happen? I know this is not the end of the entire story because there are 3 more books after this, right? 3, pretty sure. So, my goodness. What more could there be? Please feel free to click that link as well. That will get you directly to the author page of K.D. Sharonford, where you can see this book and many others for your heart's content. Book 4 just launched. That's what I thought. Yes. So this one plus the other 3. So it's going to be pretty good. My guess is the rest will lead to the cliffhanger for the next book. That's what I'm assuming as well. That is my assumption. But if Moriarty is dead, my goodness, what could it be? And to that note, page 261, chapter 42, Irene Adler. The following morning, I waited until Holmes left for the village before dragging myself out of bed. Although part of a series, they are all standalone stories. Oh, interesting. Well, now I'm even more curious. I don't want to rush to the end, but gosh darn it, how does it end? But I don't want to get there too fast. Anyway, moving on. Once again, I was feeling nauseous. She's pregnant. Stepping out of the shower, I stared at my naked body in the bathroom mirror. I inspected my breasts. They were sensitive and tender, and the rose-colored circles around my nipples were enlarged and had assumed a darker hue. I'd only just gotten dressed when I heard a knock on the barn door. I was surprised to find Violetta standing on the doorstep with fresh laundry and towels. She explained Gabriella was unwell that morning. Entering the bedroom together, we sat on the bed and chatted for a while. Gregnant? Yes, probably Gregnant. With a child named Greg. Just kidding, I knew what you meant. Violetta took my hand in hers. Nin, you need to let me know if you need any rags. You have not asked for any since you first came here. I'm afraid my courses are irregular due to a long-standing medical condition, Violetta. Violetta stared at me with a concerned expression. You don't look well these days. It's just a cold. This is more than a head cold. It could be a stomach bug. Should I fetch a doctor? Oh, no, thank you. Please excuse me, Violetta. I jumped up from the bed as a wave of nausea overcame me.
Running into the bathroom, I was violently sick. Violetta had followed me. She gently wiped my mouth with a face towel and pushed my hair back from my face before passing me a glass of water. "It's not a stomach bug," I whispered. I think I'm pregnant. This must be morning sickness." Violetta wrapped her arms around my shoulders with motherly tenderness, leading me back into the bedroom. "I don't know why they call it morning sickness," said Violetta, shaking her head. "It will soon pass, you'll see. You need some of Gabriella's ginger tea to alleviate the symptoms." Violetta glanced around the room. "Sherlock will be thrilled." "Violetta, I cannot tell him." "Why not?" "I lost a baby due to complications during my first marriage, and I will likely lose this child. Every time I go to the bathroom, I expect to see blood. I cannot put Sherlock through that. I couldn't deliver him such a crushing blow." I took hold of Violetta's arm. "Promise me you will not tell anyone, Violetta. Not even Ludo." Violetta nodded. "I promise, Nin. But you are going to have to tell Sherlock before you start to show. I'm sure he will be thrilled, even under such trying circumstances. I know from personal experience that keeping a secret is exhausting, and it rarely ends well. The more you keep something to yourself, the more difficult it becomes to reveal the truth. If I can get past the first few months, Violetta, I will be more than happy to tell him. I want us to be able to celebrate without worry." I sighed. This will not be an easy secret to keep. Sherlock has a mind that can see around corners, but I can endure anything as long as my baby is safe. That is what matters. Violetta smiled as she put her arm around me. "Life is the most incredible, extraordinary gift there is. There may be bad times ahead, but every precious second is a wondrous miracle, and every beat of our heart gives us reason to celebrate. You only need to look at what happened for Ludo and me after all these years. You know, Nin, what you and Sherlock have is special. I can tell you are a good fit." I nodded. "Yes, we are. I freely admit that there are challenging aspects to Sherlock's personality. His lack of tact and his superior intelligence can at times be intimidating to others. But underneath that icy exterior is a lovely man. He does not like to show his emotions in public, but when we're alone together, we have this fire. I need to protect him as he has protected me. I will pray to God and hope for the best. That's all I can do." "God is good, Nin. He came through for Ludo and me. Why not you and Sherlock?" "Why not indeed, Violetta? Come, join me for breakfast. We're both eating for two." I somehow managed to keep my pregnancy a secret. The morning sickness gradually wore off by late morning, and with careful makeup application, I worked hard to appear my usual self when Holmes returned from the village. I spent sleepless nights agonizing over whether to tell him of our child, but decided not to for two reasons. First, the child was unlikely to survive, and it would be much better to bleed out on my own and spare Holmes that unspeakable agony. The second was that I was sure if I told him he would ask me to marry him, and the last thing I wanted was for him to feel trapped in marriage. I could never want him to propose to me under such circumstances. So on the first night after discovering I was with child, I accepted a small glass of dry sherry, but refused further alcohol. Holmes nodded at the bottle. Are you sure you won't have another? No, thank you, I said. I've been drinking far too much lately. That has led to arguments between us. I'll stick with the one glass for now, but I will take a glass of lemonade. Holmes stared at me for a moment, then nodded. All right, if that's what you want. Never the bottle, never the way. He laughed, and I felt relieved he had accepted my explanation. Violetta went into labor the following afternoon. Ludo was pacing up and down the hallway in a fever of impatience until Giovanni finally shouted over to him. Ludo, come outside at once for a cigarette. You don't want to be troubling the women when a bambino is arriving. Rachel, the midwife, said only the women are allowed into the birthing room. Ludo nodded in resignation and joined Giovanni outside for a much-needed cigarette. Violetta was exhausted but happy when her newborn son eventually entered the world. The midwife handed him to Violetta. I've been waiting for you for such a long time, she whispered. I beamed at my friend. My God, he's so beautiful, Violetta. Look at his eyes. They're like liquid pools. Violetta nodded. Yes, he is indeed handsome. But you know every child is unique in their mother's eyes. Ludo and Holmes tentatively entered the room. Ludo gazed at his son with infinite affection and pride. Welcome to the world, my beautiful son. Well, Mr. Holmes, what do you think of my boy Francesco? Holmes smiled, staring keenly at the baby. He is a splendid child. You must be a very proud man, and rightly so. Many congratulations to both of you. Ludo embraced Violetta, speaking to her softly. Grazie, bella signora, per avermi dato un figlio. Ava entered the room with a silver tray loaded with champagne flutes, and we raised our glasses in a toast to Francesco. Violetta raised her glass to Holmes and me. Ludo will ask Father Amati if he will perform the christening on Saturday. If he agrees, then we would very much like you to be the godparents to our son. I pressed my hand to my mouth, crying tears of joy. Are you sure? We could not think of a finer couple to be godparents, said Ludo. We would consider it a privilege and an honor, said Holmes, gesturing to Ludo. You need to come with me, Mr. Espirito. Let's leave the ladies in peace. We will go and seek out the infamous Father Amati, and then, my dear fellow, we must find Giovanni and go wet the baby's head. And that's the end of the chapter. Oh, congratulations, Violetta and Ludo. Well done. Such a splendid couple. My. Oh, and look at that. The next chapter is just 2 pages. And the one after is pretty much the same. My goodness. The one after that is 2.5. What have we done? Well, very well then. Without losing any time at all, ladies and gentlemen, chapter 266, chapter 43. Short and sweet, just like you. Although I have no idea how tall you are. But I know you're sweet. Chapter 43, Irene Adler.
The following evening, Clarissa, Antonio, and Gabriella were busy preparing a delicious dinner of mussels, followed by Violetta's favorite dish, piposo alla Fiorentina, a peppery Tuscan beef stew. That sounds delicious. Holmes and I decided to have pre-dinner drinks on the patio to take in some fresh air. Sherlock, there is one thing that has been puzzling me. Holmes glanced at me curiously. What is it? He asked. The carbuncle. I don't understand what happened to it. How could it just disappear? Well, it was hardly a mystery to me. Let me expound that when your late husband hid the stone, he chose a place that he knew would be safe and where he could recover it without suspicion. I don't understand. Your brooch from La Scala. Forgive me. Wait, is that brooch? That's brooch, not brooch. Holmes unclipped the brooch from my dress. Is it brooch? Now I'm second-guessing myself. Also, I had left the door open so that the dog could lay right there on the bed, but he has not returned. Quite sad. Turning it over, he revealed a catch at the back. He carefully unfastened the clasp, and the brooch opened up to reveal a dazzling green gemstone, which fell out into the palm of his hand. I gasped with shock. No, it cannot be. I would stake my life on it, said Holmes. He placed the stone on the table. Under the sparkling night sky, the rock slowly began to change color until it had turned into a deep ruby red. Let me introduce you to the infamous Alexandrite carbuncle from Russia, a gemstone so rare and precious that men have died attempting to possess it. I love that color paint, though. Can you send it to me? Which color? Turn on. My lights went on. I'm going to paint the kitchen cabinets. Ooh, there's a fun task. How did I lose my place? It's 2 pages. Oh yeah, attempting to possess it. I found it. A flush of color rose to Holmes' pale cheeks. Yes, what? Chrysoberyl? I'm gonna butcher this. We'll talk about it later. Okay. It's part of the chrysoberyl family with an optical reflectance effect. Because of the way it absorbs light, it is described as an emerald by day and a ruby by night. A marvel of nature. The rarity of its material and its chameleon-like qualities make Alexandrite one of the world's most desirable gemstones. Holmes gazed into my eyes. My dearest Neen, you have been the custodian of this illustrious treasure all this time. If not for this stone, I would never have found you. He laughed, giving the stone one last look before placing it in his pocket. I stared at him in disbelief. Why, it's inconceivable. Unbelievable. How on earth did you know it was there? Because I knew it was nowhere else, said Holmes. After our conversation in Milan, there was never any doubt. Jones only had a limited amount of time to hide the valuable prize. Even the burglars turned their noses up at it when they broke into your house. Mind you, we needed to hold
onto it to give us leverage in case Palmer ever caught up with us. Sherlock Holmes, you never cease to amaze me, I said, staring at him in awe. Linking my arm in his, we walked to the farmhouse, taking our places at the dining table. Ludo filled our glasses, and Holmes proposed a toast to Multe Congratulazinio. I think I said that right. Probably not. I smiled at Holmes. I'm delighted you found the stone, I said, gesturing to Violetta, Ludo, and Ava. But you know, true friends are the rare jewel of life, difficult to find and impossible to replace. A toast to true friends. We all raised our glasses, repeating the sentiment. And what a true sentiment that is. Well said, Miss Adler. / Katie. Chapter 44. Irene Adler. It was a perfect summer's day for the christening of Francesco Alessandro Espirito. All the vowels. Holmes rose early, as usual, bringing me a cup of café noir. Come on, Neen, it's time to get up, he whispered. I slowly opened one eye, glancing at the clock on the wall. Good morning to you too, I replied defensively, still a little groggy from my peaceful slumber. It's only 7 o'clock. Why on earth do you insist on getting me out of bed at such a ridiculous hour? We must start the day. How are you this morning? Overtired from sleep deprivation. You know I'm not human until I've had my first cup of coffee. I thought you might appreciate a cup, said Holmes. And then I must insist you get up. Clarissa has drawn you a bath. I yawned, stretching out my arms. All right, you are right. I arched an eyebrow. Why don't you come back to bed? I'd like to hold you for a week. Huh, nice try. Holmes chuckled as he handed me the cup. But it's not going to work, I'm afraid, not this morning. Drink your coffee while it's hot. I accepted the cup, sipping from it slowly. In truth, I was still feeling a little aggrieved by Violetta's insistence that we arrive at the church an hour before the ceremony. Ludo had hired a professional photographer to take photographs of family and godparents before the other guests arrived. Instead, I would have preferred to spend the extra hour in bed, wrapped around Sherlock Holmes. Then I felt guilty, knowing how much the christening meant to Violetta. She'd waited so long for her beloved son, and she wanted everything to be perfect. I got out of bed and drained my coffee cup before taking my bath, emerging 2.5 hours later? Good Lord. I mean, 2.5 hours later, with my hair braided to the sides and attired in my favorite dress, a beautiful cream and white silk satin gown. 2.5 bloody hours? Right. I had purchased the gown from the House of Worth when touring France and had saved it for a special occasion. Well, she is a woman. Yeah, but still, good Lord. 2.5 hours is way too long for a bath, and I'm a woman. Thank you. Well, she did her hair and she got dressed, but still. Sheesh. Purchased it for a special occasion. My daughter takes longer,
Good Lord. You need to have a word with her. Anyway. Well, becoming a godmother was notable enough in my book. The water would be cold. Damn right it would. Entering the drawing room, I found Holmes waiting for me, dressed in a full suit and silk waistcoat. I helped him with his tie. Well, I must say you look rather handsome, Mr. Holmes. You look stunning yourself, Miss Adler. I'm glad you approve. You don't think that this dress is too much? Not at all, Neen. It's perfect. You have far too much class to make anyone feel second-rate. We're going to be early, I grumbled. The photograph shouldn't take that long. What can we possibly do in the meantime? Probably why she's still single. Oh, ouch. Okay. If I may inquire, how old is your daughter? You don't have to tell me. You could even give her an approximate age, if you like. Or you could just say, none of your business. Oh, I'm sure we will think of something, he said. It's such a beautiful day. We can wander around the grounds and take a look at the church. It's the oldest one in Fiesole, built on the site of an Etruscan temple. Holmes paused for a moment, smiling at me gently. I thought we might take the opportunity to light a candle for our lost children. That should keep us occupied for a while. Surprised, I looked at him. What a lovely thought, Sherlock. Yes, I'd like to do that a lot. She's 38. How is a woman of that age not being courted by a partner? I mean, there are people out there that just decide that if they find someone, they find someone, and they don't go looking, or at least not on purpose. The question is she looking? But we are not here to dissect KD's daughter's love life. That would be impossible. Dating apps. Holmes stared out of the window. I believe our carriage has arrived. He checked the time on his watch. It read 10 o'clock. The christening would commence at 11 o'clock, 1 hour hence. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the end of that chapter. Only chapter 45 remains for tonight's reading. Actually, I'm actually going to pause it right there because I need to make a second cup of tea and then get ready to read in Discord because we are reading Iron Flame this evening, ladies and gentlemen, in Discord if you would like to join us. She's been in a relationship, but sadly it did not last. I think we should, or without knowing how many questions possible, dissect your dating life. At any rate, you are right, Bookfather. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love a good gossip? The question is, would she care? I'm thinking probably. All right. Yes. Let me find someone for us to go say hello to. There you are. And then, like I said, we'll be reading in Discord. Have some tea for me? I absolutely will. Yes, as Mama House Gaming said, thank you all. I love reading to you, especially when we know the book is as good as this. It is fantastic. We all have a good time. We get to listen to a good story. We get to talk about it. We get to talk amongst ourselves too. It's great. But all good things have to come to an end. Or at least pause until next time. You have another book suggestion? I'm I'm all for it. Feel free to DM me in Discord. It's still the Bookfather, but there's an underscore. Excuse me, there's an underscore between the words. The underscore book underscore father. And that is my Discord. Waggy, I just said, okay, you got it. There you go. And I did see that you had emailed me too, so thank you. But for everybody else, that is the Discord. Oh, you sent the email asking for it. Okay. Well, now you know. Right. Who are we rating again? I completely lost track. I know. This is a person that I haven't had the pleasure of rating in forever, and she's lovely. Her name's Kilobyte. She's playing Hunt Showdown 1896. Feel free to copy that raid message if you like. And off we go. But seriously, thank you for being here. Thank you for dealing with the shenanigans, as fun as they are. And I can't wait to keep going with our book on, what is today? Today's Thursday. On Sunday. What's the Discord name? Or send it to you directly? I put the Discord name in chat. Let me do it again. There you go. The underscore book underscore father. All right. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great night. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And good night.